1 minute.
Good afternoon. Welcome to the meeting of the Northern Planning Committee. I'm Councillor Paul Wynne, Chairman of the committee. We are not expecting a fire drill today. In the event of an alarm sounding, please leave the building and gather at the front of the building. I'm obliged to inform you that this meeting is being live streamed and recorded. I also ask you to please ensure that mobile phones are switched off and ensure the volume on your laptop is muted. Thank you. To ensure the members of this committee and all points raised by the public speakers are properly heard, I must advise you that I will not tolerate any disturbance behaviour. This is a meeting held in public, not a public meeting. And if such behaviour takes place and persists, I will adjourn the meeting. Members should ensure that they are present through the meeting, and you cannot vote on any item if you have not heard all of the debate. The members and officers introduce themselves each time before they speak, so those listening knows who is speaking. I shall ask the members now of the committee and officers to introduce themselves. Thank you. Now can start with you.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Matt Green, Warren Coaten.
Councillor Mike Isherwood, Oswestry West.
Ted Clark, Councillor for Casemore, and also Sutton and Colin. Combination of two.
Royal Crofts, Market Drayton East, Northley House and Wharf.
Gary Burton, Davies, Shrewsbury.
Councillor Dipple, Ellesmere, Urban.
Steve Davenport, St Martin's, Duddleston and Duddleston Heath.
Steve Charney, Whittington.
Edward Towers, Wember and Wixel.
Roger Evans, London Division.
Gemma Lawley, Developing Highways Manager.
Andy McGee, Policy Environment Service Manager.
Tabitha Lidd, Planning and Development Services Manager.
Richard Benson, Senior Planning Officer.
Kelvin Hall, Principal Planning Officer.
Philip Molyneux, Development Manager North.
Miranda Garrard, Head of Legal and Democratic Services. Shelley Davies, Committee Officer.
Thank you very much. Item 1, apologies for absence. We have Joyce Barrow and who's standing in? Thank you. Steve is doing for Joyce Barrow. We also, where did, oh yeah, Royal Croft is standing for Vince Hunt, and Roger Evans is standing for David Vasmer. That's it. Thank you. And back to the thingy. Right, number 2, appointment of Vice Chairman. Can I have a proposal for Vice Chair, please? Edward?
Yes, in view of the seriousness of some of the planning applications upcoming, I think a person of experience would be helpful here, and I'd like to propose Vince Hunt.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. All those in favour? Oh, sorry. Any other nominations? Sorry.
I was going to suggest Councillor Steve.
I don't want to.
No, yes.
Oh, yeah.
Has a lot of experience.
On planning.
Yes.
Can I have a second of that, please?
Oh, I'll second him.
Oh, good people. Right. Okay. So, any other nominations? Right. Okay. So we're under.
We've got 2 proposals, and you take the first proposal first.
Right. We take the first proposal first, which is Vince Hunt. All those in favour of Vince Hunt, please show.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Chair.
Against? None. All those for Steve Charlie, please show.
2.
Well done, Jeff. Right, Vince has got it. Right. Right, we've had words after, okay? So we'll move on to the next on the agenda. Minutes of last meeting, to the North Planning on the 23rd of May. Can I have a post, please? Thank you. Gary, seconder, please. I'll second it. Any other questions?
Resolution on that, Chair. Are they in favour?
All in favour of the minutes? Obviously, you can't, yeah. Okay.
Abstain.
Right. Any other questions? Receive the questions. Are there any other questions now? Thank you. Any disclosable pecuniary interests? Right, thank you, Nat.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, item 11, I'm the division councillor, so I shall be out of the room for that item.
Thank you. Mike?
Item 10, I live in the proximity of the proposed development.
Okay, thank you. Right, item 6, proposed commercial development land at site of Hazeldale Way. Kelvin, you are presenting. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is an application for a mixed-use development, including retail, gym, drive-through coffee shop and drive-through restaurant, tanning and beauty salon and residential care home, together with access, parking, landscaping and associated infrastructure on land to the south of Hazeldine Way in Shrewsbury. Decision on the application was deferred at the 2nd of May Planning Committee and members requested additional information. This has now been provided and is detailed in the update report before you, along with details of representations received since the original report was written. Just some updates for you. There's a sheet before you. There's a couple of updates on paragraphs in the report, which I just want to draw to your attention. And I'll just read them out just to ensure that, there's clarity there. So paragraph 4.1.6 should be replaced with the following. The pitch and putt site was bought by Shropshire Council in 1970 as part of a larger area of land and has been in its ownership since. The applicant's assessment states that there are no restrictions on the title relating to its use and that there are no obligations to retain the land for open space. The site had historically been used as a pitch and putt course associated with the adjacent Millbrace Golf Club. And then a further update at the end of paragraph 4.1.19 of the update report should be inserted the following. The applicant has acknowledged that the land does comprise open space. Any requirement for the land to be advertised, which may arise prior to any change of its use, will be an issue that would need to be dealt with after the planning application is determined and prior to any sale or change of use. It is considered that the relevant tests for considering the appropriateness of changing the use of a land from open space in planning terms have been met. And then just finally, there's a reference in the report to ATC, and that means automatic traffic count for those that don't know. There are some additional representations as well, which have been received since the report was written. There were 2 further public objections, which have been summarised in the additional reps. They don't raise any new matters that have not already been covered in the reports presented already. And then there's comments as well from the council's leisure services team confirming that there are no plans to bring the pitch and putt site back into use due to previous declining demand, producing an annual loss of the council, and that the lack of a budget to maintain the facility, and also acknowledging that £50,000 investment would be made in the adjacent golf course. So as previously mentioned on the 2nd of May, the application has come to committee as the site is owned by Shropshire Council. And you'll note that there's also an objection from the Town Council. So if we can move on to these slides. I appreciate that most of you will have seen these already, but there were a number of members today that wouldn't have seen these. So this is the location plan, site edged in red. Members took a visit before the 2nd of May committee and also a short visit this morning as well. You can see the location in relation to the golf course to the north and to the east. Directly to the east is the Ballantyne's Health Club with its car park to the south. To the south of the site is the Millbrace Retail Park, And then to the west is the roundabout, and further along to the west is residential areas of Meal Brace. Next. The site in a bit more detail, listed in red, which it corresponds to the extent of the former pitch and putt site. It's a photograph of the site at present. And this is the proposed plot plan and layout. There are two distinct areas proposed. There's a commercial element on the western side, and then there's the care home on the eastern side. There are the access to the commercial units will be off through a new access off Otley Road from the south, and from there customers can either access the drive-throughs, which are on the south of the site, or the retail units, which are on the north of the site, and then exit will be via a new exit point onto Hazeldine Way to the north. And then with the care home, the access point for this will be at the southeastern side of the site, where the arrow is, and the exit point will be at that same part as well. And then the exit back onto Otley Road and goes off to the east, underneath the railway bridge, and underneath Otley Road, sorry, and then comes out on the southern side of Otley Road. And that's the current arrangement as well for the health club. Next one. Just run through the elevations. This is the two-storey retail units on the north of the site, with the gym occupying the first floor, and then a number of retail units on the ground floor. Floor plan, roof plan. This is the proposal for the one of the drive-through elements, the KFC. And the elevations for the other drive-through element, the Starbucks. Materials being used are generally dark cladding. There'll be tinted upper floor windows on the gym, and timber cladding, and for the drive-through elements. This is the elevations for the care home. It's like an S-shaped kind of design. Varied roof heights, stepped facades and balconies to break up the elevations, brickwork, render and cladding for external materials. Floor plans. There would be 80 bedrooms over 3 floors, mainly the ground and the first floor. There's some more bedrooms on the third floor. The cycle, refuse and maintenance stores associated with the care home. And these are the visuals showing the two drive-through units, the white buildings at the bottom end, the retail element on the western side, and then the care home in a bit more detail as shown. And that's the just different angles of the care home. This is from the Hazeldine Way element, showing the open space as well around the care home. That's the entrance way, car parking. This is the proposed landscaping in the open space for the care home. The report advises that open space is over provided for in terms of the expectations of policy. And then there's say an entrance and an exit point to the south. A number of trees would be removed to facilitate the development. Approximately 18 trees would be removed. This would be compensated for by about 45 new trees and additional hedgerow planting. And there would be, on the western side, there is an existing tree buffer. Some of those trees would be removed, but a line of trees would be retained to provide some screening from that direction from the roundabout. Then this shows a bit more detail of the tree retention. In light green, these are the trees to be retained. This is an indicative visual from the roundabout showing a new entranceway, pedestrian and cycle provision. And then this is a plan which is also included in the report, which shows how the site links in with the existing cycleways and pedestrian routes in and around the site in dotted blue. And you can see how the site links in on the western side directly to the existing cycleways. So in terms of the 4 reasons for deferral, the first one related to open space, and further information was required by members about that matter. A more detailed open space assessment has now been provided. The demand for the pitch and put site had been declining since 2009, such that the site was operating at a loss. Consultation was carried out on the possible closure of the pitch and put site. Arising from this, the council's cabinet resolved that the site was to be declared surplus to requirements and then marketed on the open market. The required procedures for dealing with the site as a registered asset of community value were undertaken. The assessment identifies that there are a number of other open spaces and recreational areas for use by the public within close proximity of the site. And in conclusion, officers are content that the assessment demonstrates that the site is surplus to requirements, therefore meeting the test in the NPPF. The council has already committed to investing £50,000 in the adjacent golf course upon the sale of the site, and some recreational use of the site would continue through the provision of a gym. In terms of the traffic assessment issue, the survey was undertaken over a 7-day period, and the traffic assessment did consider peak period flows as part of this. The junction proposed onto Hazeldown Way will be subject to a detailed design and road safety audits, and there's been no objections raised from the council's highways team. In terms of active travel, you can see on the plan there that there are linkages and connections proposed to ensure that that sustainable means of travel can be used to get to and through the site. And in relation to foul discharge matters that members raised, a previous blockage has now been cleared. The council's drainage team have looked at the proposals and the outline drainage strategy and have raised no objections, subject to detailed drainage matters being dealt with by planning condition. So the additional information has been summarised in the update report, and the recommendations continue to apply, but officers recommend that there's been sufficient assessment work undertaken, and there are sufficient benefits as well to recommend that planning permission is granted, subject to conditions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Kelly. We have 3 speakers on this, so the agent, Mr. David Kilby, you'd like to come forward, please.
Speaking against.
Against, right? Yeah.
The agent or Dave Kilby?
Against, sorry, David Kilby, come forward, sorry. You have 3 minutes. Would you like a 30-second warning?
No, Tom.
Okay.
Am I switched on or not?
You're on it.
Thank you.
This application comes without a health impact assessment, a retail impact assessment, an open space needs assessment, or study of opportunities, as required by NPPF 99, MB 10, and Shropshire Council's own healthy weight strategy. The online consultation process in 2017 attracted just 3 individual responses. This application is taking away a much valued and needed public open space, replacing it with the very obesogenic environment that Shropshire Council's own health board is trying to prevent. As we see, 67% of our population here in Shropshire are overweight or obese. The full 12-hole golf course has seen a fall in numbers from a high of 40,000 annual users to its current level of 10,000. Yet nationally, golf user numbers have grown from 3.7 million to 5.3 million participate in the last 4 years. Contrary to the officer's report, there has been since 2019 no net revenue saving from closure of the pitch and putt facility, just missed opportunities. We suggest if golf lessons, equipment sales, refreshment sales, along with investment in opportunities like adventure golf, football golf, on-course cycle tracks, practice nets, driving range and a redesign of the golf shop and entrance, then Shropshire Council would have a healthy, viable business. This valuable piece of land is far from surplus to requirement. Just like Shrewsbury swimming pool, we suggest poor management, poor maintenance and poor investment from Shropshire Council are more likely the reason for the decline in user numbers, not lack of demand for swimming or golf. Remember, at the meeting of Shropshire Council's Cabinet in 2016 and 17, it was stated, I believe, that the pitch and putt site could generate a significant capital receipt should it be declared surplus to the Council's requirement. We suggest motive enough for the demise we have witnessed of this piece of land. SPBFA believe that neither the landowner or applicant has been able to demonstrate the pitch and putt is surplus to requirement. Therefore, Part B of MPPF paragraph 99 should now be engaged. We point out that the officer acknowledges in his report that an offer by Shropshire Council to give themselves 50,000 compensation for investment in the 12-hole course cannot be considered to amount to equivalent or better provision. Therefore, SPFA recommend that this derisory amount should be increased to be in excess of 500,000, with the whole sum being used to avoid the 12-hole course also being allowed to become surplus to Shropshire Council's requirements in order to access another capital receipt. Thank you, Chairman.
Good evening. Okay, we have the local member, adjacent ward, Councillor Bernie Bennett. Please come forward.
So, before Councillor Bentley speaks, can we just confirm the actual division the development's in?
Which ward is it?
They're based in the Hill Quarry and Cotton Hill division.
No idea.
So, as a member of the three-member division, should Councillor Clark be taking part in the debate?
Yeah, adjacent ward, so it might affect his ward.
No, I mean, isn't Ted the member for?
Pardon?
Isn't Ted Clark the member for?
Oh, it's
It's a
the
three-member
three-member ward.
Mm.
Well, you're saying you shouldn't be sitting on it?
Yeah,
Yeah.
just in case we get
Yeah,
it.
Ted. It's in your ward. Yeah.
It's adjacent to me, but it's within basement.
Because it's based in Hill, Column and Sutton, so it's part of the Sutton part of it.
Your name is down, actually, Ted.
Sorry, do you want to clarify that?
Yeah. Hang on, we'll just clarify that point.
Chair, yes, it is that three-member ward. So, Councillor Clark, you are one of the local members, so you are indeed, yes. I know it's not the area that you normally look after within that large three-member division, but you are nevertheless one
I
of the
should
three
sit well,
members. I think you'll need, if you can, to go to the back.
Go to the back of the room,
Councillor
please,
Clark.
Ted, sorry.
Sorry.
You can speak on it if you wish.
Oh, good, yeah, that's the local member.
That's the local member.
Indeed, you can, Councillor Clark.
So we'll hear the speakers first, and then you can have your little bash thing to the back of the room, all right? Sorry, Ted. Thank you, sorry about that. Thank you for bringing to notice, thanks, Gary. Right, you have 5 minutes if you wish.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'm Bernie Bentic. I'm the Meal Councillor, which is adjacent to the ward adjacent to the former pitch and putt site. And I really have very little to add to Mr. Dave Kilby's submission and discussion, apart from to endorse it. I would say that golf without a pitch and putt course is like a swimming pool without a diving board. I'm afraid that it is a vital part of a golf course, and to amputate part of the facility is a retrograde step, and completely goes against the drive to improve healthy living. The KFC site is a fast food restaurant, and we are trying to improve the health of people within Shropshire by reducing the food with poor nutritional value. And so finally, the proposed care home is not at this point required. There were 248 spare care beds available within Shropshire at the start of this year, and I don't believe that that figure has changed. The golfing fraternity has not been specifically consulted on this matter, and I believe that if they were, they would be vehemently against this proposal. I would endorse Mr. Kilby's comments that this, in my opinion, contravenes national guidelines for planning in relation to open spaces and sports facilities. And I think that this development should be refused, and the land should be returned to either pitch and putt or similar facilities. Indeed, I understand there was an unofficial approach to the council with regard to an adventure golf type facility on the site earlier on this year. And so there is plenty of interest in golf facilities. As Mr. Kilby has identified, there has been an upsurge in golf playing since the pandemic ended, and this is indeed a wasted opportunity to continue with an important resource for local people. And so I would urge you, please, to vote against this development. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. Okay, floor, we have Mr. Ian Gill. You'd like to come forward, please? You have 3 minutes, and the clock is working today. It's right in front of you, which I didn't notice to start with.
Could well understand that the visitor figures for the pitch and putt side were in decline year on year, and at the same time maintenance costs were 85% in excess of the revenue received. Due to this deficit, the council reached this decision that the amenity was both viable and sustainable. Additionally, there would be a capital cost required to restore the course to a playing condition with restoration of greens and fairways plus new equipment. As part of the disposal, the council will be committing a substantial financial contribution to the adjoining golf club, and the funds will be used for alternative beginner facilities to be installed in a suitable location adjacent to the golf shop. This is a proposal supported by Sport England and Golf England. During the last 5 years, no other leisure use has been forthcoming, even when the site was offered by the council. Traffic assessments in busy times has been carried out by the traffic consultants. The 2 restaurants are not 24 hours, which has been previously stated, and the trips to them are carried out by vehicles already on the network. The developer will also improve the access into the site and will create a designated cycle route from the current cycle lanes. It is notable that the council's highways departments have no further comments and no objection to Cordwell's proposals. The care home operator will be investing millions of pounds in their high-quality 80-bed residential scheme and has carried out in-depth needs and viability research into the local vicinity and wider area, which show that there is a current demand for an additional 758 care beds in the Shrewsbury catchment area, with this figure increasing year on year. The trading company of KFC and Starbucks is a strong Shrewsbury-based and Shropshire growth company and actively employ local people, not only to run their restaurants but also operation in the local area. Both are focused on creating the right environment for their customers and local area, be it in sustainable techniques, improving the nutritional profile of the food, and providing extensive litter picks and 4 times daily in the local area and boosting the local economy. Overall, the scheme will provide facilities in demand for both local people and passing trade, provide much needed jobs, facilitate care home provision, which is much needed, and improve the beginner golf course facilities at Mealbrace Golf Club. Cordwell welcome your officer's positive recommendation with this application is worthy of approval and trust that the committee will agree likewise.
Thank you very much, Ian. Okay, Kel, would you like to come up with anything before we go to the floor?
Am I supposed to?
Oh, sorry, Ted. Yes, you're sorry.
Can I do it from here? Is that
Yeah.
politically acceptable?
Yeah.
I've got my helper here. Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry about the confusion with the boundaries, to be honest. I would suggest that those in Meal are also slightly confused about that particular area. I've nothing that has to be earth-shattering to say, other than principally I'm very disappointed that the impact on the exits from both sides, Hazeldean Way and Artley Road, the impact of those exits is not really been considered at all in relation to Meal Brace Island, which is already massively overcrowded at peak times. And I think that's already been mentioned by another person. But and I'm particularly concerned with that. I do think that we're going to have some, we're storing up considerable difficulties in terms of traffic and traffic problems at Meal Brace Island, which are already quite acute on occasions if this opens up. So that's my principal concern. I did mention it at the last meeting, but it doesn't seem to have been properly taken on board. The only other throwaway remark really is there's already a plethora of takeaway outlets in the close vicinity. We've got McDonald's just up the road at Meal Retail Park, and I can hardly think that the provision of a we call it a fitness shop or fitness facility is going to offset what is a major problem really. There's also an issue, I think, but I'm not a member of it, Ballantynes, who are next door to that development, also on the retail park, they have certain health facilities already in there. There's a small swimming pool and various bits and pieces that are inside, which, so again, there would appear to be a slight conflict with that, I think. So, in summary, I'm just really disappointed that nobody's properly taken on board what's going to be happening with the Meal traffic island once this thing, if this thing is developed.
Thank you. Thank you, Ted. Give you a couple of seconds. Could you move to the back of the room, please? Yeah, sorry.
I was hoping to avoid the room and techniques. Cheers. It's got you all right. You passed? You know what you all it is, and I get passed on.
So I was going to Calvin first to do your comments from the speakers. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, just picking up on some comments that Mr. Kilby raised. The matters in relation to health have been included in the update report at 4.5.3. There has been a retail assessment undertaken, and that is been raised again at 4.5.5, but it was also raised in the original committee report as well. And there is an open space assessment, which I've summarised in both reports. And in terms of Councillor Clark's comments in relation to highways matters, there has been a technical note provided in addition to the technical assessment, transport assessment by the applicants, and that has been reviewed by our highways team, who are content that that has been based upon the correct methodology for undertaking survey work, and that there is insufficient grounds for refusing the application on highways grounds in relation to the impact on the island, and also has looked at the need for detailed design work in relation to the exit point onto Hazeldean Way, which would form part of a separate approval process should permission be granted. Thank you.
Thank you, Alvin. Okay, someone's already indicated, so I'm going to kick off with Gary.
Thanks, Chair. Councillor Gary Burgess. Just a couple of comments on Councillor Bentinck's observations. Pitching putt courses are not normal at a golf course. They're a separate venue owned by smaller organisations. Golf courses provide practice nets, putting greens, etc., etc. They're not required to have pitching putt courses.
As for commercial viability of the businesses, it's up to the business whether they want to be commercial viable or not. It's not our decision as planning people to decide whether a business is commercially viable or not. It's our decision as planning people to follow planning law and ensure that we make the right decisions. I think that Kelvin has answered all our 4 queries from the previous meeting, and I'm happy currently to recommend approval of the officer's recommendations.
Thank you. I won't ask for a second yet. I'm sure there'll be other people to speak. We have a close. Thank you, Mike.
Thanks, Chair. I'm still a little bit concerned about the loss of open space. Since we discussed this in May, I'd have liked to have seen a bit of an attempt to see to find out who's using it at the moment. I mean, I know the pitch and putt closed years ago, and it was, you know, supposedly declining in use, etc. But since then, has a usage of the site developed amongst local people, dog walking, or, you know, using it for casual sporting activities or anything of that nature? Because have we attempted to find that out, or are we just?
We were there this morning, Mike, and it's just overgrown. There's 2 patches mown where the mowers go through back into the golf course, and that's it.
Okay.
It's 2 foot high.
And just one more question about this need for care home beds. We have one speaker saying that there's about 250 empty places in the county at the moment. Another speaker saying there's a shortage of 750. Well, that's 1,000 beds difference. Which is it? Do we need beds? Is there a surplus of beds? I'm just confused as to this position on the residential care side of things.
Calvin, do you have more information on that, Calvin, or not? Yeah, more right to care home beds or not?
I don't think I can say much more than is already in the report. We're looking at whether or not the site is suitable for that type of development, and then also then whether or not there is a need for care homes. And the information that is in the reports is that the government guidance is that there's a critical need for additional care homes. Full stop, a critical need. That's it. That's the phrase it uses. And secondly, in relation to our planning policy's own figures, that there is additional need for additional care home provision over the period to 2038. So I don't know the derivation of the other figures that say that there isn't a need, but this is the information that I've got from planning policy and our own planning, national planning policy and our own policy team.
I think we all know that Shropshire, people come to Shropshire to retire. Our county's getting older more than most counties. That's generally Roy.
Yeah, Royal Croft, Market Rate East. I'm just looking at the nursing home again with 758 beds. They're saying is required. I don't know the numbers game, but I do know from NHS sources we are desperately short of residential and nursing home beds. And to be honest, if somebody is going to spend all that money building a nursing home, they'll have done their homework to make sure that it's full when it opens.
Thank you, Chair. Absolutely great. Yeah. I'm looking for a second in there then.
Can I?
Yeah, certainly.
As a visitor, I was waiting for those who are permanent members on it, but I have concerns. I've been on the council a long time, and I live not far from this area, and I use Millbrace roundabout quite a lot. I'm amazed at the traffic that has been building up over the last year. Before it was only at Christmas time, it was very busy. If one goes around that island now, you'll find there's queues of traffic queuing up the road, 30, 40, 50 cars at a time, very, very often. I am concerned about the traffic assessment when it was done, and according to what I read, it's April last year. At April 22, I think the assessment was done. I think that was it, but I would want another assessment done because there's a lot of housing, 2 supermarkets, all on Otley Road. That road is getting dangerous to do. and there's cars rush along there to try and beat the lights. To have two more road accesses coming out of it, I think is not desirable. I note there's 100 car parking spaces noted near the fast food outlets, but it's not going to be 24 at present. 100 car parking spaces. Why is that? Because people do not waste money on car parking spaces if they're not going to be used. There's 30 odd car park spaces by the care home because of visitors and workers there and the employment of it. But I don't know why the 100 is there for. Open spaces. If one goes around that area, I would like to know where the green space is now around that area that residents and new residents can actually use. It is all being built up. It is, if one looks at the hundreds of houses that have been built along the Ontley Road, it is now becoming very, very congested. And any open space I would have thought is quite valuable, with or without a commercial development. Shropshire Council, I think, did not market it very well prior to it, and there'll be a capital asset and there will be investment in the present golf course, which I've used irregularly, but the pitch and putt course could have a different market. To play golf, you need to invest money to do it, but to actually knock a ball around, to actually walk on it, and as you said, Chairman, to actually access that ground now, it is way, way high in grass. It hasn't been looked after, not mowed. It is good for the environment, one could say. But if one looks at the Shropshire Council climate emergency and to take down 18 trees and replace them by saplings, that does not help the environment now. And it's being said in many media that we are now at boiling point on the climate. It isn't a climate emergency anymore. And to continue taking down mature trees, which can help, does not help. So at the present time, I don't feel that I can support this. And for one of the applicants to say that there is a need for more food in the area, I don't think is being very genuine. When one looks around the area, there are numerous places where fast food outlets can be obtained and can be bought. So to put more there, I just do not know what justification there is for it, whether it will ever happen or not, because I note about when the application is approved, there will have to be an advertised for open space, which won't be done until an application is approved and sold, and there's objections. So I think there's a cart and horse here, very much so. So I don't think that it's a going concern, but I will wait to see. But at the present time, what I've heard, I am against it. Thank you.
Thank you. Gemma, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So Gemma Hawley, Highways. Yeah, so just to address some of the points that were kind of raised.
Microphone's not working.
What does that?
They've all gone dead, I think.
No.
Try that one.
Let's try again. Can you hear me now?
Yes, great.
Okay. Okay, so just to address some of the points that were raised in regard to the traffic impact assessment, that's gone through a full review to include the likely kind of trip rates that this site would generate, in addition to calculations with regard to Millbrace roundabout and the signals, and the surveys are indicating that the junction will not be over capacity in relation to the development. So there's already an existing flow along Hazeldown Road and within the area, and the additional movements not considered that it will go over capacity and have a significant impact on the network. I think there's queries in regard to the survey dates, and they were done in April 2022. And I think we would accept that sort of timescale for when we're considering the applications itself. I did make a point of just checking the timing of the surveys in terms of it's sometimes around the Easter period, beginning of April, but it was outside of the school holidays. It was outside of the Easter kind of break as well, and we would consider it to be a neutral and representative of the network around. So we would accept those survey requirements. And I think one of the final points was about the parking numbers. So I think the operators generally look at the number of parking spaces, and obviously from our point of view, we would, whilst we want to promote sustainable travel, we don't want an impact on the highway network. So the additional parking spaces may be sort of just to kind of overcome any, kind of surplus onto the highway network really. And those spaces do include the gym area as well as the sort of takeaway units. But I'm happy to take any other queries as they come up.
Thank you, Chairman. Nat?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Moving on from this, going on from this issue of the parking spaces, I can't remember if it was raised the previous meeting, but how's match day parking going to be policed?
Was mentioned.
Jeremy, do you know anything about that?
If I'm honest, I don't. Normally, these car parks are kind of privately operated, so similar to the kind of like the Lidl and also Meal Brace. I would expect that they would have their own system, and there would be I don't know, to be honest with you, but I'm guessing that there would be a time limit on things, and it would be privately managed.
I did notice standing there today, there is a sign there saying match days, no parking here. Users only. I was standing underneath that, so I saw it.
With regards to that, Chairman, one of my colleagues helps at Shrewsbury Town during match days, and the club provides stewards at every housing estate and at every access where fans can illegally park.
Oh, really?
Parking, especially across the road on the new state road roads and football ground.
Yeah.
They provide stewards and barriers, etc., to ensure the representation of the football ground doesn't impede on the residents.
All right, okay. There you go. Right. I'm looking around, so I'll go for a seconder, please, for Gary's proposal. Thank you, Roy. Any more comments? Okay.
Yes, please, Mr. Chairman.
Yes.
Just a quick one to say that I live in Meal as well as being local councillor, and every single match day there are a large number of complaints from residents on Meal Estate with regard to the traffic from, that is the cars from particularly away supporters parking on the estate illegally, because as has been identified, there are signs saying no match day parking. However, this is completely disregarded by most of the cars that come onto that Meal Estate. And so I would argue against that assertion.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think that's the same with any football ground, I would have thought. I'm sorry. I would think that's the same with any football ground or rugby ground. Okay, so we've got a motion seconder. So we're going for a recorded vote, whatever you want to call it. So I'm going to get it wrong.
Roll call vote.
Roll call vote. Thank you.
Okay, so I will ask if you're for or against or abstaining. Councillor Aldcroft.
For.
Thank you. Councillor Birchett.
For.
Councillor Charmley.
For.
Councillor Elner.
For.
Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Davenport.
For.
Councillor Green.
Against.
Councillor Isherwood.
Abstain.
Councillor Towers.
Abstain.
And Councillor Wynne.
For.
Thank you, Chair. I have 6 for, 2 against and 2 abstentions. That is therefore passed.
Very much. Okay, move on to the next item, which is right, run the roundabouts now. 1, 2, 3.
Presentations, Just got slightly.
What's happened?
And technology. Get him a job book.
No, I haven't. I don't think the previous ones, but yeah.
That's not good enough to say this.
On the evidence that's there.
Particularly on the last one.
You have to make a choice.
It's all on the agenda. So I know with the big traffic, those are happy with the traffic.
Well, I was all a bit nice with the throw last time. But
Thank you, Chair. Richard's presenting, so, well, yeah, sounds bad. Okay, we're all ready to go. Thank you, Richard.
Right, the next three applications relate to sponsorship signage on roundabouts within Shrewsbury. Committee members may be aware that we've had previous applications to this back in May and last year. I'm just going to show you the three slides where the applications are. So first of all, we've got.
Chairman.
Sorry.
Microphone.
It's on. It is on.
No. Is it working, Richard?
No. It's on. Is that working now? Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
So the first slide is basically showing the three locations of where the roundabouts are. The northern one is Heathgate's roundabout, just south of Morrison's. The agenda item number 8 will be the roundabout serving Merebrose Retail Park, which is to the south. And then Frankwell roundabout is going to be the one in the middle. Basically, this is a specification sheet showing the signage, metal poles with a metal banner between, and the photograph on the right-hand side, it just shows an example of one that's recently been constructed at Turnhill roundabout, just to give you an idea of sort of the appearance that they look like.
Priest roundabout, I think, actually.
Yes, yes. Sorry, Priest roundabout. So agenda item 7, this relates to Heathgate's roundabout. There are 3 identical signs on the roundabout. An amendment has been received in relation to this application during the process to reduce the number of signs from 4 down to 3. This is in line with the previous approval that was granted back in 2011. The signs are visible from both of the 3 main A approach roads, which are Whitchurch Road, Telford Way and Dithington Road. There are no further updates to this application, and the application has been recommended for approval subject to conditions set out in Appendix 1. So the slide there shows the location, and the little red dash lines show the position of the signs on the roundabout, which are in the same positions as those previously approved. And the following slide shows an aerial photograph of the roundabout with a couple of illustrations of the roundabout. You'll see the existing signage low to the ground next to the chevron signs. This was the permission that was granted back in 2001. The proposed signs are marginally larger, 200 millimetres wider and 125 millimetres taller. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so what's the first one then? We're doing one at a time, are we? We're going to take one at a time. Right. Whitchurch Road. So any comments on that, or do I get a proposer? Thank you, Jeff.
I'd just like to propose that we approve it. I can't see any reason they've reduced the quantity. The size is very much the same as already there. There's no reason at all to refuse it. As far as I'm concerned, I propose we do accept it.
Steve?
Yeah, echo what Jeff has said, so second.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other comments? If not, Ted?
You'll have to excuse me because I wish to abstain on religious grounds, really. I just find it really annoying that we're getting further and further into this very crass Christmas laws. Religious grounds on. With a tongue emoji.
Thank you, Ted. Thank you, Edward.
Just a question really. As there's previous signage there, is this current application for a specified period? I didn't read that. Is that true or not?
The permission will be for 5 years. Approval is granted for 5 years.
Yeah.
Do we have to go through this again?
Well,
the permission for signage, they approve for 5 years. Unless any action gets taken or they're in a poor state, we can, as a local authority, we can actually get to remove them. Otherwise, they can continue on from that. So the previous application was granted in 2011. After the 5-year period, they're kept in good order. So obviously, as a council, we continue to allow them to be sited there.
Okay.
So they would be permanent effectively.
Yeah. Right, we're all happy, or sort of happy. Shall we have a show of hands on this? I'd like to have a show of hands. All those in favour, please show. Against? Three bandits in the corner there. Okay. Right, we're looking like an 8. So, Hereford Road. So, any comments or right? Opposed? Seconder, thank you, Roy. Any more comments? Thank you, Ted.
I could be allowed to just keep my seat, but I've been reminded that I should declare that it's in my area, although I don't think it is. But still, there you go.
Everything's in your hands.
I shall desist from this one.
Okay, I want to actually go to the back of the room, Ted.
Thanks very much.
So we've got
If you all move to the back.
And seconded. Yes, Roy seconded.
Just to keep the comments you want to say.
Oh, do you want to say anything, Richard?
Only that the application was amended during the process. Once again, there was an application for 3 signs. We had concerns about the size of the signs, considering the nature and the size of the roundabout. So they did actually reduce it down to the original scale of the previous approval. So effectively, it's a like-for-like replacement.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you for that clarification. Show of hands on this. All in favour, please show. Against? Yeah, thanks. So does.
Chair, I think there will be a particular irony if they show Kentucky Fried Chicken on that one, because it's McDonald's is just at the back of the island. Perhaps we could have alternative ones round it.
Chasing each other, don't sound like the case. So, right. Did we have an abstention then? Yeah, you abstained, did you mind?
No, I voted in favour because the signs are the same size as the previous.
So, okay, unanimous then. Thank you. So we go on to item 9. Mount Frankwell.
Yeah, once again, this is application was amended during the process of the application to reduce it down to 3 signs as previously approved. However, these are the slightly larger signs, the 200mm wider, 125mm taller. Frankwell roundabout is a large roundabout, as most of you probably be aware. Good landscaping on it. It is within the conservation area of Shrewsbury, a number of listed buildings close by. However, none of the signs can be viewed together. You only view it as you approach it, and officers feel that it fits comfortably within the roundabout. Once again, photographs of the roundabout with the landscaping on there.
Thank you, Richard. I'm looking around the room, so thank you, Jeff. Thank you. Steve, seconded. Any comments? Let's move on with this then. Show of hands, those in favour. Against? 1, 2, 3 against. Okay, that's gone through. Okay. Move on to item 10, land north of Whitby Road, Oswestry. Philip,
Yes, can we go have a minute, please?
where to sort out?
Chair, do I need to,
please?
Out.
do I need to, out of the actual
If you're,
room?
if you live in close.
Yeah.
Sorry, Mike. Thank you. We'll call you back in 5 minutes, eh? Oh,
The other
Right, Philip, thank you very much.
Right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Right, this application is made in full and proposes residential development of 83 dwellings with associated access, public open space, an electricity substation, drainage and landscaping, and is a resubmission of a previous refused application where reasons for refusal have been addressed. More on this and the reasons for refusal are outlined in section 1 of the report to committee before you. The site is land north of Whittington Road, Oswestry. Members will be aware of the site, having made a visit to the site this morning, and the visit included an inspection from off the site itself, as well, and the entrance to it on Whittington Road, and then members proceeded up into Hillport itself, from where they viewed the site from off the Hillport itself, and while en route to Hillport, viewing the surrounding public highways and the setting of the Hillport in relation to the development site. This included a journey down Gaboyne Road, and so a complete circle around the site itself. Members' attention is drawn to the update sheet. And I have an extensive update sheet here before you, which was published yesterday, which you'll have before you. I'd just like to run through this. I've got some slides to do with this on the presentation, as there was photographs included with the objections received from, and I'll speak it as say it out in full, hands of Old Oswestry Hill Port. In relationship to point number 1, they've referred to a building line, and that is the plan that's come in with you. You'll see the update sheet includes all the text on the screen as received from them. It does include the photographs and the pictures, hence the reason for them on the screen for you. But the building line this campaign group refers to is that red line there, and you'll see in the update sheet the council's justification as to why we don't agree with this. The planning inspector, when the SAMDEB was adopted, looked into the site extensively and said that land development shouldn't go north of the building line. The curtilage is as to the industrial building is obviously here, and this is the building line of the development, which will be set out more clear on the presentation later. And this is a landscape buffer between the railway line here and Oswestry Road, which belongs along the northern boundary site up along here. Right, the second grounds for their objection didn't include any photographs, so that's as set out on the update sheet. There's the image showing the current view as far as they are concerned in relationship to point number 3. Members will be very familiar with this because we're looking right down onto it from off the Hillport itself. It's a farmer farmstead that's now divided into industrial units. Another issue they've raised is regarding access over the Cambrian railway line. Again, that's as in the update sheet and my obviously comments. And then, as you see, those are the pictures. And then this is the final issue, which is marked as 7. I'm assuming it's an error, as pointed out in my update sheet, which should refer to 9. I've nothing further to add on these comments as to those as set out in the update sheet on this matter. There have been further objections received from that was a very extensive one, the first one. Campaign Protection Rule England, Shropshire branch, as pointed out on the update sheet. And I will be touching on this during my presentation, as we have now received further information from the applicants in the form of a sustainability checklist. And officers are competent in their opinion. The application is compliant with the policies as set out here on the update sheet, and that this sustainability checklist has been received, to which officers, like I say, consider is acceptable. There was also a further a response received as set out on the update sheet, and I have no comments to make, no further comments on that. And then finally, on the update sheet, there was one further letter of objection received before the update was received with concerns to citing of the proposed development. Issues as raised in this letter are considered covered in the report. That concludes on the update sheet. We have, since the update was received further representation in that further verbal members will be aware of the late submission received yesterday, which I believe you all copied into, from Kate Clark, again on behalf of the campaign group. Issues have been raised, have been looked at by officers, and it is considered no further issues as raised to those as covered in the report and update sheet, other than housing targets. Reference has been made to housing targets and the local plan. You'll see it was final point raised on the update sheet on the objection you received late yesterday afternoon, early evening. This site, I must make clear, forms part of the SAMDEV current local plan policy and is allocated to residential development. And this site is also included for provision in the current local plan review. While this can only receive limited weight, with regards to concerns about Oswestry and housing numbers, that makes no difference to this site, as this site, if the local plan, the new plan is adopted, still includes this site as part of its housing residential development. Finally, on issues, since we've arrived back, we've also received another letter of objection from a member of the public. However, it is considered this raises, again, no further issues. Members' attention is also drawn to the fact that this application has not accompanied by an environmental statement in support of it, and detail on this is outlined in paragraph 2.8 of the report in relationship to EIA screening of the site. As it is considered, this application as a whole contains sufficient information on which basis to make a positive recommendation. I'm now going to run through the slides. The application site hatched in red. There's the application site outlined in red. Members will be aware of this. I've been on site this morning. This is Harlick Road, and the gate entrance here where members stood and looked at the site, which is 2 fields, and site farming part of 2 fields. This is the industrial buildings to the side, which was pointed out. This site shows the site outlined in red in relation to the hill fort, which is here where the cursor is now. Application proposes extensive landscaping. The green as hatched on there is the landscaping as proposed. This is the applicant's illustrative landscape master plan, as set out, showing the residential development of 83 dwellings and the landscaping and in relationship to the surrounding neighbouring uses. Application proposes a mixture of 83 houses and designs and includes some single story as indicated on the slide above. Most of the houses are two-story, and members will be aware of the breakdown as set out in paragraph 2.7 of the report. Officers are conscious that the proposed development is low density, as the site was allocated when in accordance with the SAMDEV for 117 dwellings. However, it is also acknowledged that the site includes provision for substantial landscaping, and this is welcomed by officers as members will be aware of the objections and concerns as outlined earlier with regards to the building line to which officers do not agree. However, considering the development as proposed, acceptable in relation to the building line as outlined in the report and update sheet. In light of the with consideration also to the inspector's comments on the allocation of the site for housing and adoption of the SAMDEV. So now comes a sample of the dwellings proposed on site. In front of you is a proposed detached 4-bedroom, 2-story dwelling, detached 2-story, 3-bedroomed, and another example of a 3-bedroomed. And now some site photographs. This one is looking down from the hill fort, from where you were standing this morning. Exact location, actually. Here's another one.
That's where we're standing.
I think there's a long line of you. I was at the one end. You were probably at the from the entrance site. Note the pavement alongside the road. This is on the site in the entrance, looking into it. And another one looking into it, into the westerly direction towards the hill fort. Hill point. This is a hill fort viewpoint. Right. Members will have read the report, which is rather detailed and long in content, I accept. However, as members will have read, there are many material considerations raised by numerous objectors as outlined in the report, and this includes Oswestry Town Council. There are many objections which include reference to the action group as set up to oppose development on site. The group referred to a petition set up in opposition to the proposal, and I understand as a result of Google searches, this indeed was the case. However, no petition was received to this specific application. However, as I indicate, I acknowledge there has been an extensively signed petition opposed to development. Members will also observe the statutory consultees in their responses as set out in the report, and have observed that neither Historic England or our conservation team and many others do not object to the proposal. This is a significant material consideration that weighs in favour in the planning balance. There are also other material considerations, including the adoption of the SAMDEV and the inspector's comments, and those are set out in the statement of common ground in support of the SAMDEV, which it is appreciated that all recommendations have not been strictly met, such as improvements to the public highway. Shropshire Council highways and national highways have both been clear in their responses, with neither objecting to the proposed development and neither requesting improvements to the surrounding highways or financial contributions. As such, any requirement on these bases it is considered will not meet the necessary tests of reasonableness. Members will be aware of the suggested conditions by Shropshire Council highways. They are included in the list of Appendix 1 attached to the report. Should you be mindful to support the application. It is also appreciated circumstances have changed with regards to pedestrian cycle connectivity, making use of the former commercial railway line. As pointed out in the presentation, Whittington Road has a satisfactory footpath along which connects the site to the town centre and further beyond. It is also considered connectivity to the hill part is acceptable, and members will have observed this today during the site visit. Further still, the developers have agreed to the provision of a viewing platform within the site, and this will be secured as part of the Section 106 agreement as set out in the report, along with the affordable housing and open space provision. In conclusion, and the planning balance, and taking all the material planning facts into consideration as outlined in the report and on the update sheet, and the verbal updates as discussed in the recommended. The recommendation is one of approval, subject to conditions as outlined in Appendix 1, attached to the report, and any amendments to these conditions as considered necessary by the service manager. And the signing of a Section 106 agreement in order to ensure affordable housing and open space provision in accordance with the detail as set out in the report. And before I finally finish, you'll notice sitting alongside me is the conservation manager. Obviously, the historic environment is a significant concern in relationship to this application. So I'm now going to ask Andy to have a few words on that. Otherwise, thank you, Mr. Chair, and that concludes my presentation on this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Philip. Thank you, Andy. I think members obviously need to be cognizant when they're making their decision on this application that this is a heritage asset of the highest significance, and obviously considerable weight has to be given to its conservation under the National Planning Policy framework. This site was given detailed consideration by the Sandev inspector at the time of the site allocation, and officer's assessment is that the development would cause less than substantial harm to the significance of the hill fort as it consequently affects upon its setting. So I think I just wanted to emphasise those points really to members at this stage. And obviously the planning balance that Philip's undertaken, his view is that that harm is outweighed by the public benefits that would arise from this development.
Thank you, Andy. We have two speakers on this. We have one against and one for. So, Dr. Rachel, come forward, please. You have 3 minutes, and we have a clock. You can see yourself.
I can do it. Don't see that. Thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. So the clock will start when you start speaking, Rachel. Okay.
Good afternoon. Hello. I'm Vice President of the Prehistoric Society and I speak for them today. I'm also speaking on behalf of the Executive Director of the Council for British Archaeology, and there are two things that I'd like you to consider. Firstly, that the harm is not acceptable. The Council for British Archaeology has tried to communicate that significant harm in case law means destruction of assets. That less than significant harm to setting is not the NPPF benchmark. That less than substantial harm is still harm, under which NPPF gives a clear steer towards conservation within 260 metres from a heritage asset of highest national significance. So my notes have just disappeared. I'll have to speak very quickly in that case. Apologies.
Just pause the clock for a second, okay?
Yeah, it's just shut down. Sorry. I did.
How's your memory?
Not very good after long COVID, I'm afraid.
Substantial harm there.
Substantial harm. Very significant harm. Let me just defer to the old way of doing things. Okay.
Safer, okay?
I'll start again.
If you just take a breath, don't panic, just have a look at your paper and then start.
Thank you. Okay, so communicating harm. NPPF's necessary expertise has tried since 2014 to communicate harm to significance in this case. Historic England has actually talked about substantial and extensive change as a result of this application. The Prehistoric Society says very significant harm. Rescue, the British Archaeological Trust, advice not consistent with national policy. Foremost prehistorians, fellows of the British Academy, OBEs, MBEs, led by Cambridge Emeritus Professor and Conservative peer Lord Renfrew, cautioned early on about irreparable harm to setting. Emeritus Oxford Professor Sir Barry Cunningham says the British Hill Fort has, Shropshire Council has grossly overstepped what is ethically acceptable, and it ruins the setting. The Council for British Archaeology too, again, suggests this does not comply with NPPF. This is the necessary expertise of NPPF 195 relative to significance, yet excluded from constructive process, and in an unusual move relegated instead to letters of objection, which we all regret. I think your own landscape consultant calls the majority of landscape and visual effects adverse. Your local plan review of 2019 says any development within a landscape this highly sensitive to change would be highly noticeable, revealing this plot as legacy from 2015. Historic England, the application does seek to build past the line recommended by Historic England, as advised in the Statement of Common Ground, which underpins SAMDEV and the inspector's ruling, which the response yesterday now seems to consider not helpful. But this is a statutory consultant. We should be looking to comply with their advice. Substantial, extensive, majority adverse, very significant, irreparable harm that ruins setting. We can build these 83 houses somewhere else in Shropshire, and the CBA and the Prehistoric Society are very willing to help work out a way to do that. Thank you.
Thank you, Rachel. So your computer broke down.
Oh,
Yeah,
right.
so,
Technical gremlins, they're almost there.
so we have Stuart Wells. Would you like to come forward, please? You have 3 minutes. You have a clock there. So there you go.
Yep, thank you, Chair. My name is Stuart Wells, the agent for Cameron Homes. This is a resubmission of an earlier application that was refused on grounds of insufficient information. The application before you today now provides all necessary information to address those previous concerns and demonstrates that this development is policy compliant and acceptable. This includes an updated ecological appraisal, robust noise and odour assessments, sign-off about national highways, a revised drainage layout, and confirmation of all Section 106 heads of terms, including commitments to the provision of affordable housing and the provision and management of open space. I must stress at this point that the previous application was not refused on grounds of heritage. The starting point for any decision is the development plan, with the principle of residential development firmly established with the site's allocation in the Council's SAMDEV local plan document. This is following extensive scrutiny through that process. In allocating the site, the SAMDEV inspector found that the impact of the development would be confined to the southeast of the hill fort, a relatively small area in the context of its wider rural setting. The prominent views to the east, west and north would remain largely unaltered by the development. Following a balancing exercise, the inspector was satisfied that the public benefits of the proposal would clearly outweigh the less than substantial harm to the hill fort. Historic England confirmed through the SAMDEV process that it may be possible for some development to take place on this site, subject to appropriate master planning and design principles that help to conserve the significance of the hill fort. And following this, both Historic England and the Conservation Officer raised an objection to this application. Planning officers have found that the impacts on the hill fort and its setting, as well as the historic environment in general, is acceptable and in accordance with the local plan policies and NPPF. And in considering the development plan as a whole, conclude that the public benefits of this proposal outweigh the less than substantial harm. Benefits being much needed housing in Oswestry, affordable homes, significant areas of new public open space, and a new viewing area to enhance the experience and appreciation of the hill fort. Here you have a positive landscape-led development of a modest scale and extent, with a density appropriate to its context. The The development balances the delivery of 83 new homes whilst complying with the design principles for the site as agreed in the SAMDEV to minimise harm to the hill fort. I would like to finish by repeating the well-balanced and sound conclusions of your planning officers, and I quote, "It is considered that the substantial amount of objections raised in relation to the proposal do not outweigh the principle of residential development on this site as set out in the local plan. Taking all the material planning considerations into account, the application on balance is acceptable, on which basis to make a positive recommendation." I concur with this conclusion. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. So, Billy, Amanda, would you like to make any comments after the speakers?
We can comment now if you wish to, before the members.
Yeah.
Well, I just, first of all, in relation to the first speaker, I draw members' attention to section 6.2 and the tests are set out in the NPPF. They are set out there very clearly for you to see. And I must make it very clear that this application, Historic England were consulted and their response is set out for you in the report. It clearly raises no objections, which is also backed up by our conservation team. And the applicants employed a professionally recognised conservation Warwickshire Archaeology, who did the surveys and the reports, and it has been concluded by officers we accept what they say and we have no concerns. I'll now hand over to my colleague if he needs to have anything to do.
Not a great deal to add, members, other than to point out that obviously there's been long-term opposition to this site. Many of the bodies that Dr. Pape referred to objected to this at the SAMDEV site allocation stage, and those objections were considered by the planning inspector at that point.
Thank you, Andy. Thanks, Steve. Shelley first. Thank you.
Yeah.
Steve, yeah.
Just put my name on the list.
Cheers.
Thank you, Chair. I think, yeah, I'm the only Oswestry member here today. I know Steve is just outside.
Far enough.
Far enough. I think members who were on the site visit this morning will agree that, you know, from the hill fort, the views are spectacular and probably the best in the county, especially on a morning like this morning, which was clear. You could see for literally miles. I regularly walk the dog up there, and the last thing I would want to do was impinge on that viewpoint. But it was clear, and it was interesting, the red line which Philip put up earlier, which was from the Who's red line. My red line is slightly different to that, and it's basically the line of this development because it takes you from the corner of the farm to the corner of the not pumping station, the electricity substation, which is a clear line for development. It kind of rounds off the town in my eyes. I think the original applications through site allocations raised a lot of angst against building on the hill fort and misinterpretation. I think that angst has now dissipated somewhat. I was quite surprised. I was expecting placards and riot mobs and all sorts this morning on the site visit, but none occurred, which tells me that anger has subsided and perhaps a bit of pragmatism about what's actually happening or about to happen is occurring. So from my point of view, I'm more than happy with this. I think it's a nicely laid out development of low density and a lot of screening around it, which is what we all want after all.
Thanks, Steve. Steve Dow.
General questions, really. Should building and development and digging up, if the planning were to go ahead, they found things like a Roman fort or a Bronze Age fort to excavate. We've all seen them happening under motorways, under shopping centres. This would obviously ground to a halt until any excavations, archaeological excavations took place. One. I can't remember the other one, but I'll come back to you.
You come back, Steve. Nat.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, frankly, I'm looking at this from two perspectives. One is the applicant lodging an appeal on the one hand and the objectors going for a judicial review on the other. And it's an interesting one. At the end of the day, what we're actually arguing about is a strip of land there, because in effect there is no debate about the lower half of the site. So that's really what we're arguing about. One thing that I wanted to just feed into all these thoughts in my head was that quickly reading through some of the appeal decisions that we've just received, there was in one of them that an inspector raised an issue as to whether we have a 5-year land supply. And I would like that clarified as to whether that is the case, because that does seem to be now a question.
Thank you, Matt.
Yes,
I'll look to
I think it was the Hadnall one.
Yes, I'm aware which one you're talking about.
This is a question because it was raised.
I can take that. The planning policy team's position is that we do have.
Microphones aren't working, Chairman.
It's because there's too many on. We only have 2 on at a time.
Sorry, the planning policy team's position is that we do have a secure 5-year land supply at this present time.
Further still, yeah, I was quite shocked, to be quite honest with the Hadnall one, because Hadnall itself is a settlement that's opted out as open countryside. However, reading the appeal decision, the inspector has indicated that it was built up farm all around it. He considered it a settlement with services, and therefore it was not on the edge of the village. It had no landscape impact. It was virtually infill within the village. And I believe he also mentioned that, although in my opinion it's got little weight, but the local plan, revised local plan, Hadnall is coming back in for development.
Yeah, please, Andy.
I can pick up Councillor Davenport's.
Thank you. I was just going to ask you to do that.
Yes. There is, in terms of the conditions that are listed in the officer report, there is provision for an archaeological condition, and that would require excavation to take place on that site prior to development. Condition number 9, I believe, on that one. The site has been subject to significant archaeological investigation and evaluation work already in a number of phases. Most recently, investigation, I think in 2018-19, and that identified a number of World War I practice trenches on the site. That appears to be a principal archaeological interest on it, and those would form the focus of a programme of archaeological work prior to development of the site. So there would be investigation of that site prior to development taking place, and that would hopefully avoid any delays to the development progressing once works commence on site.
Steve first.
What, like many other sites around the county, what proof? I'm loud enough. What proof?
It's on the internet, isn't it?
What?
Microphone.
Oh, right, okay, sorry. What proof have we got this site will actually take place? That it's not a land banking site, that we will have a tarmac road into it and it'll be just left in perpetuity until something happens in 10 or 15 years' time?
We haven't got a lot of control over that, but the problem we've got is Oswestry is underachieving with its housing numbers. And
hence my question.
Sorry.
Hence my question.
Yes, it is underachieving and it is of concern. But they've got sites allocated with planning commission. There's none of them coming forward. However, in a situation like that, where we aren't getting housing delivered, we're at risk of speculative sites coming forward, and this is an allocated site for housing. Therefore, the principle of development, as far as the policy is your local plan is concerned, is considered acceptable.
Could you ask the developer?
I'll leave that with the chair.
No. You know it works, Steve. I'd just like to say a couple of words. The site visit this morning was imperative, I thought it was very worthwhile, and from the top of the hill fort you can see exactly what you're looking at, just to make that point. Okay, Edward.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I thought the site visit this morning was extremely helpful to me anyway. I am aware of its sensitivity and its ancient connotations. I was taken aback by the farm and the just at the foot of it, which is already developed and made a mess of everything in terms of a clear vista. And this is just a sort of settlement around it, really. So in that sense, I see it being helpful. So I think that, and it's not as intensive as was really planned. It's an allocated site. So I think all those are positives for it. I'm someone who likes to know that the archaeology and the history of things are preserved, as Dr. Wigley will note. But I just want a couple of questions, really. One of them is, since those site allocations in 2025, we've had obviously big climate change considerations raised. They haven't got as far as being in the next lot of sound dev considerations and plan, although I'm facing that on the working party. But what climate I'd like to know what climate considerations have been made within this development, because I think they should, even though it's going back to previous planning considerations. That's what they're taking their baseline. We've got a new one coming, I suspect. I'd like to know how this development is already a move towards getting it right in terms of climate change, and also it referenced the fact that I'd like to make sure there are crossings across the road or the railway to the hill fort, so that public walkways and runways and whatever else can be maintained. And it seems that there's a bit of a block on that with the historic railway, but I just wonder if there's any way around that and making that possible too, so that the public can access the site from this development up to the hill fort and things like that. So it's two things really: climate change and active transport.
Okay, Shelley, go on.
On climate change, your officers have assessed the proposal in accordance with your current local plan.
Yes, that's right.
There is building regulations with regards house construction would be an issue, and other than that, that is an issue that was raised by CPRE, which I mentioned earlier, and which is covered in the update sheet. And one of their main concerns was a sustainability checklist that has been submitted, albeit late. Officers have reviewed it and they considered it acceptable. So as far as officers are concerned on climate change, we feel there are no grounds or basis on which to refuse this application. The second issue with regards access to the hill fort, as members travelled up to the hill fort this morning, I pointed out to you about the existing footpaths. I accept the railway line cannot be used as access. This matter is covered in your report, and I defer you to that on that matter otherwise.
Thank you. Roger?
Thank you, Chairman. I wasn't able to come on the visit this morning, but I have visited the site extensively in the past. I note in the papers before us today, it's 616, policy MD13, and it states the historic environment in Sandev states that Shropshire's heritage assets will be protected, conserved, sympathetically enhanced, and restored by ensuring that wherever possible, proposals avoid harm or loss of significance to designated or non-designated heritage. It goes on. And then in 617, it says that MD30 states heritage assets are buildings, monuments, sites, places, areas of landscape that merit consideration as part of the planning process. The word substantial has been used extensively this afternoon, and that is open to interpretation. I think this would cause harm to that area. It is important. Once built up, we lose it. And I note the speaker earlier on said 10% affordable housing. No, it isn't. 83, 10% is 8.3. It could have gone up to 9. If one looks at inspector reports, and I quote the report for the Hereford Road one, which quotes, and the reason that went against the council's policy of it was that Shropshire Council needs affordable housing. 8 out of 83 is a derogatory amount. I know it's a council policy for 10% up in this area, which we have to accept, but I am against it. To me, it will harm that area. Once built on, we have lost it. If there's substantial other building sites, planning permission there, then we should be pressing for those to be built on rather than here. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. I noticed that this morning we were looking down, and the first application, or a application, is right at the base of the hill forts. First one, we were all aghast at that because that would have an effect. Well, this is just a line, as Steve said before, going across, filling it in. That's how I saw it. That's how the members, well, shall we saw it, filling the circling basically. Right, Ted.
Thank you, Chair. I think the site visit is one of those site visits that was particularly helpful. I think a lot of people struggled for me when I got there. I think the impact on me primarily was something I was unaware of. Is the previous photographs which I had on there of the armoury industry complex directly underneath the hill, which appears to have already, that's it, to not in considerable degree impacted on the setting. So I think that's, I'm in the balance with that really, on the basis of this particularly. Otherwise I wasn't over thrilled with the idea of any stuff going on there. The only other point if I could make is, how can we configure that? There was in one of the numerous comments that have been made, is the configuration of housing that is put on site so that they maximise the use of photovoltaic stuff on the roof, solar panels on the roof. Have we got any influence over that? So we can ask them to,
that's the point.
So that we can actually ask them to turn them around.
Looking at the site, the south, the actual hill fort is south of the housing estate. So that's south, so that's where it'd be directly looking at for those solar panels and things.
I'm going to make it so that the amount of generation from photovoltaic stuff on the individual houses can be maximised. If you've got them turned in the wrong way, you won't be receiving the right level of energy from source. I'm sorry, I've been a little clumsy with my words, but as long as you understand that, surely we should be giving more weight these days, or attempting to actually encourage developers to not only bear that in mind, but where they can, to configure the houses so that they are aiming in the right direction, so that you've got the roof slopes on one side are aiming south or as close to as we can.
It's a good point. I think we'll take it into future maybe.
Yeah, I don't know, is it
someone to let's respond? There's another issue we need to respond on. Andy's.
Okay, Andy, yeah.
Personal angle.
Just to respond to Councillor Evans's point regarding the level of harm, it is acknowledged that there will be harm across the significance of the hill fort as a consequence of this development. It's important for members to bear in mind there are two levels of harm identified within the National Planning Policy Framework. There is substantial harm, there is less than substantial harm. Substantial harm is established by case law as being a very high test, particularly in relation to setting. And that's why it's, and that's cited in, got the reference in the officer report. And that's why in this instance, we're identifying the harm as less than substantial, and therefore the relevant policy test in section paragraphs 199, 200 and 202 of the framework apply in this instance. So it's important for members to bear in mind that substantial harm is a very high test in relation to effects on the setting.
Thank you.
On the affordable housing issue, the application complies with policy. It is 10%. They've offered 8 houses plus a financial contribution to make up the 0.3 of a, or 0. Whatever it is of the percentage. Our housing officers have accepted that, and that will form part of any Section 106 agreement. Should you be mindful to support the application? We, as far as I hear what you're saying with regards solar gain, etc. However, the building regulations would cover this issue, and there's nothing more ourselves as planning officers can do based on your planning policies with regards to getting further construction as you're suggesting. But I would have thought it would be in the developer's interests to build houses to meet market demand, and I guess people are looking for energy saving and solar panels as much as they are. And in fact, it's quite surprising with existing housing developments on site where we get requests and non-material amendments to include solar panels, and they seem to be very popular. And I'm certainly noticing an increase in actually, there's a recent style of solar panel where they're actually built into the roof now. And in fact, there's a house going up alongside, not far from me now, with that in mind. I've been very surprised if the builders didn't take that into consideration on this site. But equally, this is a sensitive site. They have to be very careful with regard to scale and design. We consider that the houses as put forward now are suitable for the location with the surrounding sensitivities. So it's a balancing act between preservation and green issues. Thank you.
Thanks, Philip, for that. Just a brief comment, if Officer can make one, relating to the separate issue that was brought up, relating to the railway line along there and the potential for it ever to be
used.
Well, what needs to go to it, and whether this will compromise that.
The development not compromise.
Whether the development would compromise the reinstatement of that line, please.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, what did somebody say that?
Oh, feedback one.
Oh, sorry. Oh, thank you, I mean. No, the development will not compromise it. It's set out in the report how that's changed from when the sound air policy was adopted. And therefore, I do not believe this development would compromise. And in any case, up against the railway line is a substantial landscaping, as you'll notice, as I pointed out to you during the site visit this morning, where the railway line is. Well, it's well above the building line, as touched on earlier, and in between the houses and this railway line is substantial landscaping.
Thank you. Check. So it shouldn't be substantial harm to the railway then.
Thank you, Mr.
Just
Chairman.
accepting of heritage.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. From this morning's site visit,
I was told, or we were told, that the site could have had 117 houses on there, but there's only 83, which is good. What controls have we got? We've got any powers of controls, because there's still half a field left. We can't. Can we stop any further development if this was approved in the vicinity of this development? I don't want the extra 30 odd houses being done.
They fill their allocated space. That's it.
That's it.
That's it.
Good. Thank you. Thank you, Chair. I just want to go with Ted again on this one. This climate change thing. I think it's all very well to say it fits exam to the officers this and to any future developer anywhere else in the county. It's all very well to say that the policies at the moment are these, but if we know and we're working towards a better set of policies coming in,
then we ought to already be doing that. I would love this development, which I think has got many positive aspects to it. I would actually like it to have done the solar panels on the roofs and things like that. And I just want to make the point that that's where we should be going as a committee and asking for and urging those things. And just to simply say, well, the existing policies are, I would like planning officers to encourage anybody to enter the application advice to be saying, well, have you not considered doing this and this and this to meet that future need?
Reconfiguring. I think we have to change the policy before we can do that. That's everything.
Well, we work on climate change. And it could be a condition to
Encouragement, yes.
sensitive about that.
Right, I think we've a good blast on this. I think we've got a chit chat on this. So, a proposal, please. I think Steve sort of. Yeah, do you want to propose? Whichever. Gary?
I propose that we accept those recommendations.
Second, Steve. Okay, so we'll have a roll call vote on it. Any other comments? And we're happy. Some are happy, some not, probably, but that's planning.
Okay, thank you, Chair. So the proposal is for the officer's recommendation as set out in the report. I'll go through this now. Councillor Oldcroft.
4.
Councillor Birchett.
4.
Councillor Charmley.
4.
Councillor Elmer.
4.
Councillor Evans.
Against.
Councillor Clark.
Reluctantly 4.
Councillor Davenport.
4.
Councillor Green.
4.
Councillor Fisher isn't in here, sorry. Councillor Towers.
4.
And Councillor Wynne.
4.
Chair, I have 9 for and 1 against. That is therefore carried.
Thank you very much. Okay, we should move on. Can somebody call in?
Yes.
Your sidekick.
Yes, Green.
Right. So we move on to item 11, Riverside Shopping Centre, Pride Hill. John is presenting this. Thank you, John.
Right, this application seeks planning permission to allow a partial demolition of units 2, 44 to 48, and a pedestrian walkway canopy of the Riverside Shopping Centre in Shrewsbury to make access for a geo-environmental investigations. Just update members, there are no updates to reports. The application has been referred to the committee as the application has been submitted by Shropshire Council to itself, which also acts as the local planning authority. So yes, the site location. Site location relates to the Riverside Shopping Centre, to the north end of the town centre of Shrewsbury. The site location plan, you see the River Severn to the north. Smithfield Road is adjacent to the site. To the right of the site, you can that's the River Meadows car park, which is adjacent to the Premier Inn. Before next. This is the demolition proposal. You'll see in the black dash lines, there's 3 black dash lines there, and they are the areas that will be demolished. So the bottom left, you've got the unit 2. Bottom left, down. Yeah. That's the former police station. Central to the site is the walkway canopy.
And then just north of that is the rear of units 44 to 48. So these are photographs of units 44 to 48 on the left and the walkway canopy on the right. The drawing below is the area to be demolished. So on that picture that you can see there, the gabled towers, as has been described, they will be retained. It's just the central section in the black outline that will be removed. And then on the right, you can see the canopy that will be removed entirely. Next one. So these are photographs. On the top one is the canopy that's taken from the Raven Meadows car park, looking down. And then the bottom left photograph is the rear of units 44 to 48. And that central section is what will be demolished. Next one. Yeah. And then this is the other units to be affected. This is the former police station. The area outlined in black there on the top left photograph, that's the front elevation, that will be retained. The drawings show wireless is to be removed. So the grey area on the drawings will be retained. The white areas are what's going to be demolished. Next one. This photograph is to the rear. That will be taken down. As you can see from the photographs, the buildings in question are very little contribution to the conservation area, which this is within. We've received no objection from the conservation team. As I say, the works are very minor in scale. In terms of the post-demolition plan, as I say, the works are very limited, so we don't expect much disturbance. The canopy will be removed entirely. The station to the bottom left, you'll have the roadside elevation retained. And in the rear of units 44 to 48, that will have a hoarding sent across to basically cover the area that will be removed. Overall, the works would represent very minor developments, which would enable limited ground investigations in support of the future redevelopment of the Riverside area of Shrewsbury Town Centre, which is identified as a key priority of core strategies policies, and is also supported by the Council's Big Town Plan. Overall, the works are considered deemed acceptable, subject to conditions outlined in Appendix 1 of the officer's report. The conditions are quite limited. These include a demolition traffic management plan to be submitted prior to development, and also all developments to be carried out in accordance with the demolition method statements that the council have submitted, and which our environmental protection team are happy with. So subject to those conditions, the application is recommended for approval.
Thank you, John.
That's the presentation. Thank you.
Okay, have no speakers on this. Gary's indicated, Dean's indicated, so kick off with Gary. Yeah.
Thank you, Chairman. I'm just curious why we're just cherry picking. Why don't we just bulldoze the whole thing?
Yeah.
It's going to take it down. Just knock it down. We don't know. Why are we messing around taking bits of it down?
That's what's in front of us today.
Okay. Well,
boring.
They're undertaking ground investigations, so in terms of the cost and time to demolish the whole thing, that's not up for discussion at the moment. You need to establish what the ground investigations of what could be potentially built in the future. So in order to achieve that, this length in demolition is all that is required at this moment.
You need to be aware, this is a very extensive development in the long run, and they need to do more trials, testing. We've also got issues with the river, and it's obviously in floodplain. This is not straightforward, but obviously it's a council application with a lot of groundwork needed before we put the final thing together.
Sorry, Tabitha, I didn't see you there.
Yeah, that's okay. Hiding at the back. Just wanted to add that it's in a conservation area, so they need permission to demolish it. And Historic England, because there's ancient monuments nearby, they will want to see what's coming before. And at the moment, it's too early stages for the council to say. So as John has indicated, this is just the ground investigation works, but that's why it's only small nibbles of demolition at the moment.
It was a throwaway remark. You're in it, Ted. Steve first, then Ted.
Thank you, Chair. In a previous life, we started work on this bigger project. Heaven knows why it's taken so long to get to this stage, but it was always going to be complex. This is the first phase, and it very much welcomed, and I'd be happy to propose a demolition. Thank you.
Right, now we're going to Ted.
Councillor John is spike the guns really. I was up for proposing this as for progression. I'll second it instead.
Thank you, Ted. Mike.
Thank you, Chair. So as I understand it, the site is remaining open while these take place. So people still going to be able to access the existing site, and that's all remaining as it is.
I think they're boarding it.
Or is it going to be completely closed off from this point? Sorry, this thing is.
Sorry, it's me. Right now.
Ah, there we go. And is the reason for retaining the facade of the police station, etc., just to maintain the appearance, so that there's no unnecessary building site appearance in the conservation zone? Because I've got the same question really. Why is it so selective? It's almost surgical, when it's all got to come down eventually. So yeah, just a question about that really.
Yeah, in terms of the scope of the works, the council have commissioned a geotechnical investigations. They feel in order to better understand the ground conditions of the site, this will be sufficient for the time being. In terms of this post-demolition plan, clearly we want to avoid a situation where it looks unkempt and untidy for no purpose at all. So the work is very surgical, very limited, and that allows the site to remain open and accessible without too much undue harm to the conservation area. Clearly, if it was demolished in a greater swathe and it was left there for a period of time, that would cause issues of its own. So this is the application that we're looking at. I think the limited scale means that I believe it should be recommended for approval.
Yeah, thank you, Miranda.
Thank you, Chair. I just wanted to caution members, because this is obviously a small initial, almost surgical, as I think you've said, phase of the project that you obviously understand to be part of a wider project. Obviously, clearly there will be other elements coming before you. So just to caution members some care regarding any sort of sense of predetermination, because it is a complex site. There will be complex issues for committee at some point to consider. So I think it's sort of best that you look at what's before you today and perhaps leave the sort of concerns about what is yet to come for another day. And that I think is probably the safest advice I can give members.
Thank you, Miranda. Roger.
Thank you, Chairman. As a visitor, unlikely to be concerned in the future, I have a little bit of a licence, but I understand what the advice is. But do we, as this site is there and we have officers there, do we know when this limited reduction will start? Because we're now in the middle of July, tourist season. We've got a very busy August, nice autumn. This is a main entrance to Shrewsbury, so I understand and I'll be supporting this, but it is a main access into the town, and economically it needs to remain open and accessible and welcoming at all times. But I see some of it, especially the canopy, could well interfere with the access unless it's all barriered off. And if I read the drawings correctly, it looks like we come over the bridge and then we stay in the open air to walk around. I don't know if that's right, but it needs to be well signpost and to look as attractive as possible.
Good point, Roger. Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, I'll answer that. They are conscious of what you just said, hence the reason they've got to do more explanatory testing. And so they're keeping it to an absolute minimum. It's complex with flood zone and EIA legislation, so they're doing it in a most cost-effective way in order to get information together to draw further designs. And this is considered the least visual and our most appropriate way to go about it, while trying to maintain use of the majority of the site. And I have done a tour around there with the developers, and I've got the distinct impression they are very conscious of exactly what you just said.
Just one final comment, Chairman, if I may.
Go on, Gary.
Just on 4.1.1, Shrewsbury Council asking about street furniture, if it's possible to recycle it and have it reused for parts of the town. Is that something you can consideration to?
Yeah, I can pass that on.
It's in the.
Yes, and no, of course. I mean, that is will be passed on. I don't think it's materials this determination, this application.
Okay.
Roger, quick one.
Well, and that is that there used to be a horse trough on the corner of, I think, Rose Hill and Smithfield Road, which disappeared a few years ago. Don't know if it's still there, but it would be good if that could be maintained and brought back into use as part of years ago.
Good point. You're looking at that, John. Have a look into it. Right, I think we'll be back to it soon. We have a proposal, yes. We second it. So now we're going to go. Right. Yeah, we'll do it through a roll call system. Happy, yeah, let's go.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Oldcroft.
For.
Councillor Birchett.
For.
Councillor Charmley. For. Councillor Elnett.
For.
Councillor Evans.
For.
Councillor Clark.
For.
Councillor Davenport.
For.
Councillor Green. He's gone, sorry, apologies. Councillor Isherwood.
For.
Councillor Towers.
For.
Councillor Wynne.
For.
That's unanimous, Chair.
Okay, can somebody bring back in that, please? Yeah. Right, appeals and appeal decisions. I just wait till that's back.
Yeah. Can I go now, boss?
Yes.
Yeah. See you, Steve.
Right, do we have any sort of comments on the appeals and appeal decisions?
I've made a decision, you just want to move things, don't you?
Would you like their comments?
Well, they are what they are. I see there's eight being dismissed and 4 allowed. I don't know, it seems to me we get one allowed and then another one comes in. It's like waiting for a bus, and this last week we had a couple, one which you referred to in the debate today, but had no. But I have nothing further to add. I just quoted on the numbers here. We are experiencing quite a high number of appeals at the moment, which is obviously putting further pressure on officers with regards to workloads. But like I said, it is what it is.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I'll move to item 13. Date for the next meeting is the 15th of August, 2 o'clock in this room. We have got a meeting, which you must want to know. We have got a meeting, haven't we?
Sorry, what was the date again?
15th of August. We have got a meeting, haven't we, Flora? We decided on last week.
Yes, we have got a meeting. Yes, we have got a meeting.
Okay, thank you everybody for attending on a very warm afternoon. Thank you very much.